I'm 41 years old, right? So getting pregnant at 40 years old and have a baby and be fruit-based and be vegan, like how is that possible? Well, my first pregnancy, my labor was over 38 hours. And with my second pregnancy, it was honestly like nothing was happening besides I'm just like getting bigger. The birth itself was just 15 minutes long. I literally water broke. 4 contractions later, he was out.
Do you feel something that most women, if not all, should do? Hi, and welcome to this new episode of The Light Leaders. Today I'm with Sarah Bisarello. And Sarah, you've been a vegetarian for 13 years, vegan for I think over 9, raw vegan for over 8 years, eating a primarily food-based diet. And you've had 3 children. The first one you've had with animal products, and the next 2 being more on the raw diet. And so today we're gonna dispel some myths, because I've been a raw vegan for 4 years and vegan for about 8, and I live in a conscious community in Ubud, and I often hear, oh, for men that diet works, but not for women. And often what comes up is things with menstruation, things with fertility, things with pregnancy, with motherhood. And I just want to, with this episode, give new possibilities. And I think what a better way to ask someone who's been living that life, because of course we can ask expert, and I can ask I've asked Doug Graham and Professor Spiran what they think about menstruation and all this, but it's obviously uh, more direct experience with someone like you, Sarah. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Yeah,
Mm.
thank you for having me here. And yeah, not a lot of people, understand, I guess, necessarily how can a woman, get pregnant even, I'm 41 years old, right? So getting pregnant at 40 years old and have a baby and be fruit based and be vegan, like how is that possible? How are her eggs vital enough for her to be able to have it stick, because a lot of people will tell you, you got to have animal products, you got to have meat, you got to have all these different things to actually be able to get pregnant. And a lot of people will actually come to me and say, well, I was vegan for so many years and I couldn't get pregnant. And then I started eating bone broth and I started eating meat and then I was able to get pregnant, right? And I had a very opposite experience for myself where, I had my first pregnancy was, I was vegetarian, vegan, done a little bit of cleansing, and then I had some meat. I was vegan all the way till about 32 weeks. And then I started having some animal products and I gained so much weight. I was literally like 68, 70 pounds and over what I gained. And then on top of that, I was like completely swollen. I had all the symptoms. I had really high emotions, right? So I'd go really high emotions, like really crying and then come down, and there was no stabilization, right? And then I'd have a gassy stomach. I had all the normal symptoms that most pregnant people would have, right? I had nausea, and my my labor was over 38 hours. Okay. And after that 38 hours, I tore. My postpartum was just really long. I did have a natural birth on that lifestyle, but I knew after having that birth, and I knew how my postpartum was because I just was not myself. Like I'm like, why aren't I like super, super joyful? Like I felt low. I felt like really the drop of the hormones, right, come in. And maybe it was, having a first child and being a new mom, but I knew physically, I'm like, but there's something not going right here. Like I should be like, have so much vitality and so much energy. What's happening? And after that, I just was like, I know there's got to be something different and something different for me. I know pregnancy and I know birth can look different for a woman. And, it wasn't till my daughter was 1 year old and I had candida, I had some kidney issues, some liver issues, parasites, you name it. And I was like, I have to be done with this. I want to have another child. And I just jumped in. My intuition was like, go raw or go home. And I jumped in, I did a juice fast, and I started feeling like myself again. And my milk actually came in a lot more, which is interesting enough. People are like, oh, how is your milk supply on, a raw vegan or fruit based diet? And it's actually a lot because a lot of it is water. Okay. And so, once I got into that lifestyle, I knew that it was definitely for me. And then I didn't know how the next pregnancy was going to be until it actually started happening. So I took 2.5 years once I slowed down on the breastfeeding of my daughter. Barely was breastfeeding at all because I didn't want to, put any toxins into her. And I started detoxing my body and I started cleansing my organs, each and every organ. So every organ could be running, the strongest it could be, right? And then once I did my detox, I then did regeneration of the body. So actually building those organs up, feeling good. And I did, we do it in a very strategic way now when we help people. And I do exactly what I did to myself, to other people. And like clockwork, as soon as I wanted to get pregnant, I got pregnant. And with my second pregnancy, it was honestly like nothing was happening besides I'm just like getting bigger. I didn't have any nausea. I didn't have the inflammation. I didn't have these incredible hormonal ups and downs. I wasn't like up through the night having to move because my body was hurting. It was a very, very different experience. And I was very active too. I was a very active pregnant woman. I was going to the gym. I was working out. And then when I had my second son, my first son, um, the birth itself was just 15 minutes long. I literally water broke. 4 contractions later, he was out. My husband could barely catch him. He had like amniotic fluid all over his face. And I had him. I was like standing up, like barely, like squatting, and he just flew out like a football. And then right after that, I wasn't exhausted. I literally was like, okay, I just did this and I was not expecting this at all. But I did hear actually through Dr. Morse at one point, he's like, babies can be born pretty quick when you've gone through that process of properly cleansing your organs and preparing your body for pregnancy and birth. And so I wasn't expecting like, 10, 15 minutes. And once I had him, immediately I was like, give me bananas, give me some juice, like, just to, it was almost like, when you run a race and you want to get that potassium, and everyone's like, eat bananas. I just immediately intuitively knew that I had to have bananas to help with my muscles, right? To help with everything. And so, yeah, it was great. It was really an easy time. I had a midwife, but she didn't make it. So it ended up being a free birth. And she walked in and she just couldn't believe it. She was just like, why are you not resting? Why are you not swollen? Like, what's happening? Everything went like this and right back. Right. And that's because of the acidity, the less acidity that I had in my body to be able to allow it to come in and come out, allow the cervix to open and then to close. Right. So that was my experience with my second birth, and the postpartum was great. I was hiking by day 5. I just felt normal, and I didn't have that depression. I didn't have these really lows. I was super, super joyful. And I knew right then and there that there was something to this. And I don't want to throw it all on just the lifestyle. I think a lot of it has to do with our emotional state, with our mental state, how we are in our heart. Why is that going down?
Yeah, I think that's like an iPhone automatic thing.
Oh, that's so funny. It's like down, the
Yeah,
emotional state,
emotions down.
emotions down, right? So I knew that the emotional state, like not only did I prepare on the physical, I was preparing emotionally. I was working through my own birth. I was working through my mother's birth. I was working through my mother and daddy issues, and all of those emotions are actually stagnant and stagnation within our body, and it is what the pain is within the body when a woman goes into to labor when they're in pregnancy and what comes out. And like I always tell people, even if you're not on this lifestyle, right, working on those emotions can be life changing just for your birth, right? And when you shift your birth, you can actually shift and change for the child, right? So, like, everything for me was all about, it wasn't just for myself, this was for my child to have a different experience coming into this plane, to this earth. So, he doesn't have to work through, my mommy and daddy issues. He doesn't have to have weaknesses in his body, kidney weaknesses, liver weaknesses, and have to detox when he's older out of him, me. I wanted to give him a clean slate this life. Like, what can I do as a mother to be a selfless mother, to give him the opportunity to come in to a clean body, to a clean state of mind. So you have to work on your emotions when you are pregnant, because they feel and hear everything that you are feeling and you are hearing and you are saying, right? So the more conscious and the more aware we are of that, the easier it is for the baby, and the easier it is for the pregnancy and the birth. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Sarah. And I know you work with other women also, and you have a very holistic approach, right? And the diet and the lifestyle is one thing, as you shared, but also the emotional side, maybe the spiritual side. You're not just working with the physical.
Mm-hmm.
And for the sake of our interview today, I'm actually gonna stay a lot on the physical and on the diet. And I'll tell you why is because in the spiritual communities, which most of my watchers and listeners are part of, when they watch the light leaders in general, it's like
Mm-hmm.
they have that light worker vibe. And so they'll definitely align with
Yeah.
that holistic approach, right? Which maybe some people coming from more the old paradigm may be so new to them that, oh, I need to work on my emotions also. But
Right.
in the conscious communities that I'm part of, I feel that there would be quite an agreement on that holistic part. But however, the part on the diet, not so much. Living in Ubud here, um,
Mm,
uh, I see a lot of hormonal health coach women in general that
right.
help other women, especially around fertility, around giving birth, and a lot will have as a component that you need meat, for example. And so, actually, at first, I actually wanted to do what I call a gentle debate or an open conversation with a friend of mine here, who she's doing actually exactly that. And she just gave birth. That's why she couldn't, I mean, like a couple of months ago, and she's quite busy. So she couldn't join us for this time, but she said maybe later, or maybe we'll find
Mm-hmm.
another lady to have this conversation. But I feel there is there is definitely in my field, and I would assume in many people's field, and you mentioned it already, that idea that okay, that raw vegan high fruit diet is all nice and cool, but if you want to get a child, it's not going to work. And so that's why I want to frame that obviously
Mm-hmm.
there's so much more to it, to having the birth that you've had. It's not
Right.
just the diet, there's all the other things you worked on, but at the same time there's a lot of women that will advocate the same things, but will just really disagree with you on the diet part. And that's why I open saying this podcast to me is new possibilities, because I also know in the nutrition world there's probably podcasters out there that have like a carnivore woman that says why it's so much better. I don't know, but it's nutrition. There's all these stories of
Mm-hmm.
personal stories that lead in different ways, and people are confused. So that's why I say I don't tell people like, okay, then it's the truth, but it's definitely a possibility that I want people to have. And by the way, I'm talking to the people watching this episode now. If you feel this is an important conversation, if you vibe with that, maybe you can share with someone you feel would need to hear that, or maybe even just like the video or share your comments, so we spread this different possibility I haven't heard of a lot to the world. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. You're exactly right. It feels like a new thing, and it feels really out there, to a lot of people. I mean, even midwives today, like they'll ask you, well, where are you getting, you got to amp your iron levels up. You got to amp your protein up. You got to do this and that. And, I just, I'm just intuitively eating the way that feels good and the way that I know for myself now twice, right? So I had one, that was my first raw vegan high fruit pregnancy. Then I had my second one 5 years later. Okay. 5 years later.
Quite recently, right? When was that?
Yes, I'm 12 weeks postpartum, 13 weeks postpartum. Yes,
Yay!
I just had another
Congratulations.
amazing baby boy. Yes, he's healthy, 7.8 pounds, perfect. Um, I had, again, another incredible pregnancy, another incredible birth with him. And through those 5 years, um, I continued this lifestyle. I didn't stop doing the lifestyle. I did do some extra things in the in between to help promote. And that was just like one was, I had exposure to some chemicals, some agrotoxins, an orange grove that was spraying like this really gnarly stuff that I actually did 100 days of oranges. I did 100 days of oranges about, I would say about a year and a few months before I actually conceived him, and that alone, holy moly, that completely changed everything for me. I mean, my entire digestion, the amount of food that I was needing to eat shifted because of those 100 days of oranges. And I didn't do juice, I ate the oranges. So I sat and I ate like 2,500 calories of oranges every single day, right? So the
Your
oranges could
your
actually,
teeth your teeth were fine. That's like a fear that would come, I guess, with
I
eating
have
only
no,
oranges.
I know people always ask me that, and I had no issues. Actually, my teeth got whiter, and I barely brushed my teeth. I was like, I'm just eating oranges, right? And it really helped pave the way in my intestines to allow me to absorb more nutrients. So immediately after that, I was able to absorb food so much better that I didn't have to eat as much to actually, I guess you want to say, feel full or feel nourished. And then I could see how that alone helped me with the preparation for my next pregnancy and my next birth. And I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I did besides just like, I mean, to prepare for the pregnancy itself. I was not promoting. I think this is a big thing for women who are on this lifestyle, is that they're pulling, detox, 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 and they forget to regenerate. They forget to build. Like, happily eat. There's a time. It's like, okay, great. I had my 100 days of oranges, but now I need to eat. I need to have other fruits, other salads and big juices and other things that feel good. And I'm all about green juices. I'm all about salads. I love my sprouts. I love making mac nut dressings. I love making my raw pumpkin seed rolls and things like that. So I like to have a variety of fruits and a variety of raw vegetables in my diet, which I think is extremely helpful. If you say protein, you can get all your sprouts that way. You can do, raw sea moss gel, even though some people don't believe in it. I felt great on sea moss gel. That was actually really beneficial when I was preparing. And, I would say in that preparation process, when I knew, I'm like, okay, he's ready to come in, I'm ready to conceive, I'm not going to be heavily detoxing right now. I'm going to just be in that build phase. So I'm not like trying to clean out my uterus at this moment. It's
Mm.
like, let's build up, let's build the blood,
Yeah.
let's build the body, let's get strong, let's get mentally strong, let's get physically strong. And so I can carry the baby. And
Which
as soon
is,
as
by the way, if I can just pause you there for a second, which is interesting because even usually a building diet, people will see a fruit diet as detox, but for you, if you add the salads and the bananas and the CMOS and these things, you see it as a building diet, which is interesting in itself. And also, I want to precise, we talked about it at the before we started recording, but your usual diet is, you said 95% fruits, and then you have salads and greens, maybe tiny bit of nuts or things like this, and you're like 99% raw, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think it's funny you say that that's my building. Yeah. The bananas are the builders, the dates are the builders, the meme sapotes are the builders. I had a lot of meme sapote and that was incredible. And, I want to say this because, like, if you look at my skin, like, it's glowing. Like, before I was raw, before I went through this detox path, I had horrific acne, and especially here, which is all hormones. Okay. So my hormones actually balanced going into this lifestyle. My periods became lighter, became a bright pink. The darker your blood is the more acidic. I don't want to say dirty it is, but acidic, it's like you need to clean your blood,
Mm.
right? So the blood itself with my period, I'm not one of those people where it's like, oh, I don't believe, you never have your period and all that. Like have always had mine, but it became lighter and it became easier. There was no cramping. It was literally the same. The periods were the same as if when I was giving birth and going through my laboring process. There's no pain, no pushing. I want to say that I had no pain, no pushing for both pregnancies and births that were fruit-based, raw, vegan.
Thank you for being with us and watching this episode. If you're here, you're probably part of the team, part of the light leaders, the ones who came here to create a new earth, to assist the rise in consciousness of our planet. With this podcast, I aim to do just that. And I'm also a coach. I support other conscious leaders to have more impact. I do specialize on helping them grow a high impact podcast. I do one-on-one, and I also have a mastermind for it called the Impact Podcast Mastermind. And I also work one-on-one with conscious leaders on different things like growing their business, thriving on a raw vegan diet, feeling more joy and fulfillment in life, or finding their purpose. And as light leaders, I believe we can have much more impact if we work together. So if you feel the call to receive my support, let's connect. It'd be my honor to assist you. Check the link in the description below where I share more about how I might be able to help you and maybe speak to you soon.
No pushing. Like literally the baby just comes out and there's no pain. Okay. Which I think says a lot. I had a lot of pain with my first birth, a lot of pain, and this has no pain. It's more of like a surge. I call them surges of energies where it's just like a big opening. It was like, and I was able to open up much faster than I was prior, probably because of all the acidity that was in my body, that I was holding on into my body. Okay,
Well,
so
that's powerful, and I want to add. Maybe some people might think, oh, so because the first birth might be the hardest, and then you're more open and used to it. But here's such a contrast that I would understand. You couldn't just say, oh, it's because it was the first. It's so different, right?
exactly, and that's what I tell people. People be like all the time, well, that was just a fluke, you just had some good luck. I'm like, it wasn't good luck. I worked my ass off for this. I worked my butt, I worked my body, my emotions to be able to receive this type of pregnancy and birth because I knew if I did this, there was going to be something different. And then I was like, okay, let's see what happens in my third pregnancy. Let's see if the same thing happens. Or is it going to be, or
I
was,
was also curious because the
yeah,
first time we spoke, so the first time I had you, it was a Q&A for a community I was having. I ended up finding, well, this is so interesting. We need to do a podcast out of it. So that's why
yeah,
I'm so happy we're finally doing it. But
I know.
that you didn't have the third child. And I was thinking the same. I was like, okay, number 2 is interesting. How is it going to go with the third? And looking into that. So
Yes,
it's kind of proving it a bit more that it's not
totally.
just luck. Yeah.
It wasn't just a fluke for sure. And my third pregnancy, like I said, because of the orange fast, because of the just a deeper preparation for my third one, I was able to absorb so much more nutrients. And so I felt incredible. I felt great. I did add a little bit more like this baby. So now every baby has their own, like, I don't want to say agenda, but their own codes that they want to have in their body. You know, like my second son, he was like so much fruit, watermelons, grapes, watermelons, lots of like watery stuff. And this one really wanted like meme sapote, it wanted bananas, it wanted dates, it wanted he wanted what's it called? Like lots of like kind of gourmet raw food. So I started like
Durian?
gourmet raw food.
No, but I meant also durian because you
Dorian,
talk about
yes.
those more dense
Yeah.
fruits.
Yes, yes. We don't have so much durian here in Hawaii, but I did have some durian during this pregnancy. My second son, because we went to Bali when he was a year old, so we lived in Bali for 5 months. His favorite food of all time is durian. Favorite food. That's all he wants to eat. He says, "Mommy, I could live off of durian, coconut waters, and bananas. That's it. That's it, right?" So I wish that we had more durian like we had in Bali so we could eat it all the time. But yeah, I had some durian in this pregnancy. I was just more like I'm gonna make more gourmet stuff and just, have a little bit more fun and yeah, it was great. I gained a little bit more weight with this pregnancy, but not by much, maybe like 8 pounds more than with my second. And yeah, very similar. I had tons of energy. I mean, I remember people saying to me, they're like, "How can you do all this pregnant?" I'm like, I'm not sick. I feel good. I always felt good. I always had energy. The fruits, there's something about the vibration of the fruits within your body that just gives you so much energy, but not in a way that you're having a sugar rush. You just feel full of life and you have all this vitality. And when you're consuming live foods and you're bringing life in and you're growing life, it only is a win-win situation. So bringing live enzymes and live foods to actually grow life, you just feel like I felt so alive. And even, I don't know, I was even more of like an aliveness with my third pregnancy at 40 years old. Okay. And when I had my birth, I went into labor on Father's Day, which was really special. And it was like a half, yeah,
And just to pause you, just when you say on 40, even just having a child at 40, in your paradigm, people say like, oh, that's like a little bit too old and you might get complication
yeah,
and all that. Am I correct?
for sure. I'm like geriatric. I'm like an old woman having a baby at this moment. Like that's what they consider. You are high in all the medical fields. You are high risk pregnancy. You got to be watched over. I didn't have any of those. I didn't have like checkups. I didn't have a midwife. I free birthed this baby. I went into labor, or not. I don't want to say labor, but I started having mild contractions just like right before Father's Day was over. And then I had my son within like, it was like when actual real contractions started was probably like a half an hour. It was super quick, almost identical to my son. Actually, it was the same thing. My water broke and I get up, I'm in the same position, and my son came out, me standing, just a slight squat, and my husband caught him. The only difference this time is I had two children. I had one with a camera like this with the light, and then I had my my other son with another light. And he's like, "Mom," and they're both like, "Mom, your butt's gonna explode. What's happening?" It was so like, he was just hysterical. And then the baby came out, and they're like, "We have a baby brother." And so my children were a huge part of this birth. They watched everything. They saw the blood. They saw the amniotic fluid. They saw him come out. They saw me birth the placenta. My son and my husband made me a green juice almost immediately. They're like up at 1 o'clock in the morning and making juice, giving mommy bananas. And it was so beautiful because they themselves, my children, intuitively knew what I needed. They were like, "Mama, eat some fruit. You just gave birth. Come on, have some fruit. And I was like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "And I want my green juice too and my coconut waters." And they knew right away. And my son actually started to learn at 5 years old how to cut a coconut open on his own so he could get me coconut waters. So it was an awesome birth. And, postpartum again, very easy. I had someone come check on me the next day, and again, like you're not swollen. The biggest thing was you need to lay down. You need to rest. And I'm like, I'm not tired. I feel like I feel good. And that's what's so shocking to me is like, how good you feel when you're eating fruit and we're giving those enzymes back. Like the healing that happens within your body becomes so immediate, so immediate. I didn't have these crazy, like, they say your iron will drop really low because you're going to lose so much blood. I didn't have any of that. Like those issues didn't happen to me. And I just feel really good. And I feel passionate about sharing that there is other possibilities. Now, whether it resonates with other people or not, that's okay. I'm not here to judge or tell somebody how they can or cannot have birth, how they want to eat, whatnot, but I'm just telling you that the possibility and what I knew could be possible, it happened, and it happened again. And if I have another baby, hopefully it'll happen again. But I see the difference too in my children, and I see the difference in my newborn and how incredibly calm he is. He's
Amazing.
so calm. Yeah.
I want to dive a little bit more into that also, yeah, like your children now for sure. But thank you for sharing those stories. It's so powerful. And
Thank you.
actually, there's a second thing why we're doing it. One we mentioned is new possibilities for sure. And I think this podcast also important for people who maybe are already on this path but may doubt. So for some people, it might be more new and be like, oh, that's possible. Maybe I can try that. I can get more information about this, feel into that. And for some people, it might be, okay, I want to do it, but I got all these people, whether it's family, friends, community that, um, yeah, the stuff around that tell me it's not possible. And so that instills a lot of doubt. And you'd probably agree that um, this this physical realm is actually from consciousness, it's from energy, and so there's much more flexibility to it, and obviously our beliefs matter a lot, right? So I always look at it that we're in that physical realm where it seems that things affect us, right? There's things I eat that makes me feel better, things not as much, but also the way I think about it impacts a lot too. So ideally, it's gonna be okay. I'm gonna do that diet, but at the same time, I know it's gonna work. I'm like I trust in it, and that's also gonna be healthy because I believe if you do it, but you're really scared that you're going to be very deficient and miss this and miss that, it might not be healthy because of body mind connection. So that's also another purpose of this episode is to give people who want to do it that way maybe more certainty and less doubt. And I'm curious because we talked a lot so far about your experience and we'll talk more about it, but you're also coaching other people, other women.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
I'm curious, how does it goes when you coach other women? Because is it something you feel like you're quite different or worked mainly for you? Is it something that you feel works for some women, not others, or do you feel something that most women, if not all, should do?
I think I'm just gonna just frame this for you. I hear my baby crying, so he might have to jump into this frame with us because I don't
That
know how
that
long he's gonna
I
take.
love it.
I
Yeah,
hear him. I hear
keep
him on
it
the
raw.
outskirts. Yeah, we're super raw and real here. For me, I don't push anybody to do anything, to do any lifestyle. I feel that if this calls to you, if the women, watch this or hear my story or see other stories of people that I've helped, and they say there's something in their heart and in their soul that says this is something that I have to do, then it works because it's a part of their soul alignment to do this. Okay, so it might not work for every single person. Well, and first of all, a lot of people will come to me. I'll have people email me and say, like, I just went raw vegan, I'm pregnant. And I always tell people you don't want to just jump into it. You need to take the time to prepare. Like, give your body at least 9 months, give your body a year. Like, I took 2.5 years to prepare for my first pregnancy because I wanted to make sure that I got the detox, level done so then I could regenerate, right? So I'm not going into it already like, oh, I'm going to be detoxing this whole time. You don't want to be detoxing. You want to be pregnant and building and gathering, a time of building and gathering versus detoxing. So, it works if people are dedicated, and also if that soul of the child wants that. Like I help a lot of the women who, we connect with the souls of their child. I help them connect with their heart. So for me, everything starts here. Everything starts with your heart. And if you're going into your heart and you believe that, but also you have that within you that this is going to be hard to say this. You need to work on a lot of your worthiness, okay? And that's why the number one thing that I teach is the love thyself practice, is to go into your heart and to work on your self-worth, work on the things that you've done in your past, the things you've said, the things that you don't like, the things that you've not forgiven others for, yourself for, and to be able to work through those issues. And then when those things start to come, the food actually is much easier. Okay. So that becomes, the food could be propeller for your emotions, but the emotions can be a propeller for the food to come in and for the diet. And so when you work on those aspects, and so when I work with women, we start there. We start with the heart. We start with how you're feeling. Like, why do you boycott yourself? Like we're going through this process, and you're there and you're passing parasites and you're passing your plaque, and then you go out and eat a cheeseburger, right? And then usually that cheeseburger was a representation of like maybe your own birth or something that happened when you were younger, and you're like, well, I can't handle the emotion that's coming up of me being so angry at my mom, right? So that's when we're like, okay, stay on the path. Let's work through the emotions, and you don't have to go backwards and go eat the things that are going to numb your emotions to actually make you feel, right? So that's what, a lot of raw food does, is it makes you feel those raw emotions. And granted, you can be a raw foodist and still never, face your emotions, never face what's actually happening to you, those mommy and daddy issues, right? So when you do that together, so when I work with people, we're working on those emotions, and then we're looking at what is the food, what is the fruit that's going to help you heal not just the physicality, but the emotion. So like, what is stuck in that liver? What is that anger that is stuck in that liver? And look, we've got a beautiful grapefruit right here that wants to give you the medicine. And it's interesting, 9 times out of 10, when I do sessions with people, just solely connecting with the children, and we go within the body, those children will come to them and say, Mommy, in order for you to conceive me, you need to start eating this, this, and this. And it's usually like some type of fruit, right? Because they need that fruit for them to actually come in and actually stay within the body. I had a woman one time, she didn't even change her lifestyle, okay? And we did a session, and she was about to do IVF, okay? And I said, let's just do a session. So we
Is
jumped
that
in.
in vitro fecundation?
Yeah. She wasn't able to have a child. And we went into the session itself, and we went in, and her child actually started sharing with her about where she was not feeling worthy of receiving the baby. And she broke down in tears, and she saw where it was coming from. And then she got pregnant naturally the next month. But the baby was like, you need figs, mommy. Mommy, you need figs. So there was something in her body that needed that particular type of fruit for her to be able to conceive this child to come in. Okay. And so, yeah, there's many, I've worked with women who've been, 35, 36, who, went into this lifestyle, went into like, a detox protocol, and then started Regenerate, and they were able to get pregnant pretty easily, And so, does everyone have my same exact experience? They maybe had a little bit longer births, maybe some shorter, but yeah, overall, the pregnancy and the births itself are much easier, and it's much easier for them to get through it. But I do want to preface this, because I haven't been sharing this much, but it's not just about the mother, it's also about the father, and the father preparing and detoxing and eating this lifestyle too to get his sperm ready, because it's not just my body, their sperm, half of that comes from him, right? So, my husband has also been on this lifestyle longer than me, and been, helping people longer. And so him
How
being
long
able,
has he been on this lifestyle?
when I met him 12 years ago, he was fully raw. And then he kind of came out of it and was vegan, and then went back. And but yeah, he's been longer than me. So it definitely helps when the man can do it with the woman, the husband can do it with the wife, and they can prepare together for this child. Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah. So you'd say in general you saw those results also in your clients, which is really interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I'd love to see, you know, more people do it too, and more people commit to it. And you just gotta want it, Like, I'm the type of person where, when I have a goal, nothing's stopping me. I'm like, I'm doing it, you know? And I think that's kind of, you have to have that dedication and determination with inside you to, as when you go raw, when you go through this process, to be able to get through that detox period, to be able to face your things, and to see it to the other side, you know.
Yeah, and also to trust despite the common beliefs, right? And I've had a lot of podcasts also as a man on building muscles, on the diet, and things like this. And obviously, there's a lot of doubt. But like today, I wanted to focus on the woman and pregnancy side, which has been less in my podcast, but it's been um, so interesting. I have another question I wanted to ask you. Oh no, I had a request because I feel such an important message. So first, I'm gonna put your details in the description
Mm-hmm.
because I do think it'd be amazing to have more people try that and see for
Mm-hmm.
themselves if they feel the call, of course. And so obviously you can reach out to Sarah and again share, like, subscribe if you want to spread this message because this is on YouTube and is going to be shown to more people if you share it directly or if you support it with a comment, a like, or subscribing to the channel. So we definitely appreciate that if you vibe as a viewer of this with the message, and that will come a long way because I believe this episode could be a paradigm shift. I honestly do, and that's why I'm like very grateful that you're here, and I'm also um, calling in the other light leaders that are watching this. And when you watch
Mm-hmm.
this, you're also part of the tribe and part of the you're part of the episode. You're part of spreading the word. So
Hmm.
that's
Well, then,
that would be definitely appreciated. Yeah.
yeah. And imagine if all these children can come in, and massive groups of children can come into this earth right now, where they're not having to detox their body, they're not having those weaknesses from their mom and from their dad, and they can come in with a clean state. Like, imagine the difference of these children and what they're going to be like. That's
Yeah.
my view. Like, yeah, go ahead.
Well, actually, that's where I want to go towards. Is so your two older children, like what, 8 and 5 now, something like this,
Yeah, 9 and 5. Yeah.
9 and 5. Like,
Yeah.
how are they now? Are they still eating fully raw? Are they happy with that? Do they go intuitively to it?
Yeah, they eat primarily fruit.
Or
Yeah, primarily food. They do have vegetables, they have greens. I'm not opposed to them having some vegan foods and stuff like that. Do my children want meat? No, not at all. And they intuitively have been like that.
they've never
They're
asked, they've never been curious about, like, I don't know how you raise them, but like maybe if you'd go to school, you'd imagine the child
right,
being like, oh, everyone's trying eggs, or like, should I try?
right. I mean, in all honesty, my daughter did ask. She asked if she could try a burger when she was, I don't know, maybe it was like 3, something like that. And we're the type of people, like, again, I'm not going to say something's bad, or I think every food has a function and every food has a purpose. And so we said, of course, you can try it, you know? And so she tried it, and then she took one bite, and then she took the meat out and she put French fries in. And we asked her how it made her feel. So the biggest thing was like, how does it feel when you ate that? And then once she understood what it was, she got really sad. Okay. And then there was another instance where I didn't tell her, somebody offered her ice cream. And then she just immediately said at 3.5 years old, she said, I'm not going to have, I'm not going to have any ice cream because they take the baby cows away from the mama cows. And I don't want anybody taking your milk away from me to make ice cream. And so she knew right then and there, like that's just her beliefs. Like she wants to save the animals. She wants to preserve animals. Like she's just, that's who she was coming into this earth. And, you know, I fully respect and honor that. And, yeah, so they're totally on this lifestyle. They're healthy, they're happy, they're tons of energy. My son loves his fruit. They love, you know, and they love vegetables too. They love anything with a garden. They love growing plants, connecting with plants. They're just, yeah, I mean, I feel like they're just super connected to nature and connected to their hearts and connected to their intuition and to their soul of who they truly are. And I don't give them numbing foods like a lot of parents do. I don't see my kids if they act up, well, let's go to the store and get you a Cheetos, you know, like I don't do that. Let's give you a Cheetos and go in front of the screen. I'm like, let's feel your emotions. If you need to scream for a little bit, then let's like get it out, because they are going to have real emotions. And I feel like they're definitely been more raw and more real with this lifestyle for sure. You know, they are very expressive. They have tons of energy. They love playing. They're, you know, they're just, I feel like they're like how kids are, and they should be. And like, they're just full of life and happiness and joy. And they've never had candy. Like my daughter had one piece of candy, I think one time. And, you know, we just practice like what we do, but we also are very honest about like what things are, and you know how that will make you feel if you do eat that, or if you want to like connect in with the energy of that, you know. But definitely like they don't ever ask for meat, they don't ever ask for cheese, they don't ever ask for eggs or anything like that. They might ask for more cooked vegan stuff and things like that, but not really like junk food or anything like that, because it's not a part of their palate. Because I didn't grow up like having my parents or aunties or uncles give them things, just because the other kids are having it. Like when we go to parties, like we're the ones bringing like a ton of fruit, and then all the
Mm,
kids are eating our fruit, you know what I mean? Because they want it too. They're
yeah.
naturally drawn to the fruit.
Yeah, I'm actually curious a little bit about the environment they grew up in. And just before we get into that, it's interesting because when newborns come, they're like that blank slate and they don't have the conditioning that we've had as adults, at least for someone
Like,
like me who's been raised in the, like, call it the matrix or the old paradigm. Like, nothing too bad, but
yeah,
just I used to, yeah, go to McDonald's and eat a lot of cheese and baguette as a good French and drink wine and all this. Anyway, and that had been my rebirth, right? And what the things I did are actually um, very similar to what you shared your children did at that point, because the first thing is I started to feel. So I would have a burger and write down 2 hours later, how do I feel now? And really connect. How do I feel after I eat,
right.
1 hour after, 2 hours after? So really reconnecting with feeling. That's even how I stopped smoking. I would, it was probably like 9 or 10 years ago. And at some point I would smoke. I was like, how do I feel now? How do I like the taste? And sometimes midway I would be like, actually, I don't like it. And that's how I stopped. Not because I should and I have to, maybe a little bit, but anyway. And same with stopping coffee, same with stopping alcohol, like many things like this. It came a lot with how I feel. So that's the first thing. And the other thing is just common sense from an unconditioned mind, because what she was sharing about the milk from the cow, like from my perspective now, it's just so common sense, right? Like, why would you drink the cow of a the milk of a cow? It doesn't make sense, but we're just so conditioned, right? That it's normal. And so yeah, I just think it's interesting that when children come, they have that blank slate, and sometimes they do things that from a fresh perspective would be totally normal. That's how I became vegan 8 years ago. I was reading Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, and a lot of it is looking at our culture from a fresh eye, almost like you'd be an extraterrestrial, and you come to us and you look at it as it is without the conditioning. And obviously, factory farming and a lot of these practices, when you look at them from a fresh eye, they're kind of weird, like really weird. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, it brought that when you shared her thought process. I had a bit the same, but was a little bit
Great.
more lengthy for me because I still had all that conditioning.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a good thing to talk about too, is like, like even for children, for mothers, like, when they want those things, when they want, like, I always ask them, like, well, what are you feeling? Like, did anything happen? Like, are you, and sometimes they'll tell me like, well, I'm feeling sad, or like there's going to be some kind of emotion that is going to help them. Sorry, there's an emotion that will crave a certain food to match the behavior of what they're feeling inside. So we look for things outside of us to eat to match how we're feeling inside, to help us go through that process, whether it's numbing it, whether it's healing it, whether it's just being with it. You know what I mean? And that's why I love fruit so much, is because every fruit, it it has an association with an emotion or a feeling within ourselves. And then that feeling and emotion is also going to that certain organ, right? So then that fruit will then help heal that organ, that will then help heal that emotion that's been trapped, that's been crystallized for so long within our body, which is also like within pregnancy and within birth, especially birth, because your body has all these crystallized energies, right? So if we have gone with the fruit and we've gone through those aspects, like even in our hips or even in our cervix, right? And we've worked on those issues that are quote unquote there, or those feelings that have not been felt, have not been heard. And we allow the fruit to help us see that and to feel that. And then obviously, heal on the physical level. It's amazing. It like just comes out. It's really incredible. And that's why, like, when I was preparing, like there was very specific fruits that I was eating for specific reasons for pregnancy. I'm not going to go into details of all those things, but you know, it's really it's amazing. I will give you this one thing. Dates are absolutely incredible for the cervix. Absolutely incredible for the cervix and opening up. And a lot of people will talk about it, even like, meat eaters and vegans. They'll be like, yeah, you got to eat your dates, right? And that is a powerful thing. And also, I'm going to go into something that is going to be kind of funny, but pooping. Okay. So imagine if you're not constipated. Imagine if your bowels are moving smoothly and clearly out of your body, right? Right. And that happens when you go, on a more raw vegan diet or fruit based diet. You heal your gut, and then you're having normal bowel movements. So if you have 3 to 4 normal bowel movements a day, so everything's opening up clearly, right? That's kind of the same thing with birth, right? Because it's a similar sensation. So I always tell people, never push when you're having a bowel movement. You need to train that area to not push, to allow the bowel movement to come out. But if you're constipated, if you have a lot of stuff stuck inside your intestines, right, it's harder to poop. So it's like a similar thing with birth, because if you have nothing there, it could open up and it flies out. It's truly it sounds really simple, but it makes so much sense. And you can tell even when you're going into labor and when you're birthing, like the poop will come out, everything exits, and then the baby comes out. And there's nothing obstructing, not saying that the poop is in the in the cervix or the uterus or the vagina, nothing like that. But just like the energetics of that, it's able to come out with ease and with grace because there's not as much acidity within the body.
Amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for that
Going into poop.
analogy. Yeah, no, for sure.
Poop is a big thing when it comes to birth. Yeah.
Yeah. I had something I wanted to react on also when you talked about the emotions, and I'm sure you'll be aligned with that. Is that obviously when you speak about it, it might seem simple, but bringing to the emotion, one emotion that can come up is guilt, right? Also, when we eat this food. And so to me, it's like, how do we find that balance of trying to do better and at the same time not be too hard with ourselves? I know you've been on this journey for many years. I have to. As progress over perfection. It takes time. Those conditionings are deep. They come from when we were 2 years old, 3 years old, and they're going to take time. So, of course, maybe you feel like, oh, I really want that pizza. And maybe you're kind of conscious that you're numbing an emotion, but you can't resist. Then feeling guilty about it makes it even worse because then you add up to whatever you were feeling, the emotion of guilt. So it's totally fine. Also, like, have the pizza and just keep making progress, bring consciousness to it.
Please.
See how you feel when you have the pizza and maybe you create some rewire there. But I don't want people also to feel like so bad because now they're having the pizza and they're numbing their emotion. It's okay. It's part of the path, right?
100%. And that is where being gentle with yourself, loving yourself, going through it does not happen overnight. And you don't need to, slit your wrist for anything like that. And again, having the negative eye and the negative perception is almost worse than eating the pizza. You know what I mean? It's like if you're happy and you're eating, you're like, I'm gonna. That's better than like, that is disgusting. That is the most awful thing. That is an abortion, and that creates those energies in your body. I think that's why you were saying, like checking with your emotions, seeing how you feel, but not having a negative eye on it, but like actually constructively understanding, like, am I eating this because of this or because of that? And if you're choosing to still do it because that's okay, and going, I'm going to learn whatever I'm learning again, because every food has a function, learning what is the medicine of that food? What is that food showing me today? Whether it's pizza, whether it's, an apple, whether it's, Cheetos, whatever it is, what is that showing me inside myself and how can I learn from that? And it's really like that self observation and just, not being too hard on yourself either, and taking it slow. Like nothing's an easy path. We don't just heal overnight. And I think a lot of people, that's why they say, oh, I'm just going to have that type of birth, or I'm going to have that type of pregnancy. And I'm like, it takes time, and it's okay. It's okay to just like take it easy on yourself and go at your pace. And that's one of the things that we do when we help with people is everything is at your pace. There's no pushing because you need to naturally go through your process. Something like, my husband and I both, like, it wasn't an overnight thing. Like, we have to do this. This is mental. It naturally happened to us from our internal process for us to start going into this lifestyle, So I think it naturally has to happen for everyone else, and really trusting their emotions, trusting their feelings, and also doing having some dedication and determination too, because you need that. Otherwise we just stop, right? But also giving yourself that grace.
Yeah,
So
thank you,
that's a good
Sarah.
thing.
Yeah, and we've already gone for longer than I intended to, but it's just so interesting. And so to go towards the end of this episode, there's a couple of more things I would love to touch upon. And one is the environment that your children are growing up in. And the second one is maybe we can have Emmanuel say hi and talk about how he prepared his sperm after. So that's
Yes, that would
basically
be
what I
amazing.
think how I think we can conclude that. But so first,
Okay.
can you share a little bit more about the environment your children are in? Because
Mhm.
obviously, obviously, it can be different if you're like, I don't know, if you're in London and your children go to normal school, like it might be harder to feed them the way you do and have them have the lifestyle. So, what's the environment you designed for your children to thrive?
So we try to live as close to nature as possible. We live on an island in the Pacific, where there's tons of fresh fruits and vegetables growing. We don't have Wi-Fi in our home. We don't really use a lot of screen time at all. And I homeschool. And again, we try to keep it as close to nature as possible. And for the people who might live in London or might, live in New York and whatnot, like fill your space up with plants. Go out to the park, get them outside as much as possible. When you do that, then they're naturally drawn to more nature based things, more to food. Like I definitely, like when we go to the markets and stuff, like I have my kids connect with the fruits and be like, okay, well, what fruits feel good to you? Does that fruit feel good? Do you want to eat that fruit? So get them connected with the fruit because they already are. They already know more than me. Like my son, like we'll be driving and he can see like from the side of the road. He's like, Mom, there's ripe mango on that tree. And I'm like, how can you see that? I can't even see that. And that's just his natural instinct of being able to see fruit and want it because of growing up, being born within this lifestyle of lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, lots of plants growing. As you know, my husband does, or maybe you don't know, my husband does syntropic agroforestry. So he's all about planting seeds, all about growing trees, and how that connection with that alone will shift and change for you and your healing process and how you want to eat, what you want to eat. And I see it in my children. I see them just
Mm.
so happy going and just playing on trees and jumping in the ocean. And we chose this lifestyle. We moved away for a little bit and we were back in the mainland. And I could see such a big difference in my children being in a big city covered with 5G towers and being in the car so much. Like I saw their personality shift and I even saw their cravings become different. And so we knew that we wanted to, as a family, be close to nature and live this lifestyle. And we knew that would be easier, not only for ourselves, but for them.
And did you find other families or community that are in alignment with that?
Yeah, there's a lot of families that are either living this way or people reach out to me all the time and they want to live this way. They want
Like
to.
physically with you?
Well, they don't live physically in my space, no. But there's definitely families within the town that we live in that are that are living in this lifestyle or
Yeah,
wanting to.
I meant in the same area. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, there's more families. Yeah, and there's a lot more families now than there was, you know, 8 years ago when I started this. Like way more, way more. It's like definitely catching on for sure.
And like they have a similar lifestyle, diet, and
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
that's
that they
cool.
want to eat fruits, they want to eat vegetables, they don't want their kids to have candies. They don't want to do a lot of screen time. They don't do AI, all that stuff. They want them as close to nature as possible, for
Mm.
sure.
It's nice to hear for someone like me who for now doesn't have children, but sometimes we talk about it with my partner. But part of it is that kind of full-time job and maybe isolation we feel we may need if we want to raise our children a certain way. So it's definitely a desire for me to find communities, environments where I feel we can have children and sometimes we can leave them with uh, a community or other parents and not feel too worried about it that it's going to be unhealthy or they're going to and like get bad patterns, things like this.
Right. And I think too it helps with the parents, like, because my kids have such a good foundation, they don't even like, they can see things. They can go, like, I don't, like, my kids go to birthday parties where kids are eating other things and they don't ask me to eat it. They're not like, oh, I want that, like I need that. They're not getting that peer pressure because they already have such a good foundation and they know what they want and they know who they are. And so it hasn't been super difficult, but I can see if they're trying to transition later in life, how it could be harder for sure. And it's nice. That's definitely something, maybe Emmanuel can share more with you about like what some of our visions are with that type of community and what what we want to also bring to this earth, and to
Yeah.
help with these families and these communities to come together and to be able to grow your food, to be able to eat this way, and to have our children be close to nature. And I definitely feel that these beings that are coming in are asking, actually I know they're asking, they're telling me this is what they want. This is the lifestyle that they want, is a one closer to nature, so they can live out their purpose, so we can help them live out their purpose here on this earth, and come back to what we know. I would say, a lot of people say the new earth, but I'm like, the original earth, how we always were, how the original state was here on earth prior to, the industrial revolution and everything. So yeah.
But yeah, thank you, Sarah. That was again super powerful. I'm excited to put this episode to the world. Do you have anything you like last share with our viewers today?
What do I want to share? Just, thank you for listening. Thank you for, receiving this message, whether it resonates with you or not. Just really listen to your heart, and to follow that, and to do what makes you, what you feel good. But know that pregnancy, know that birth, it doesn't have to be full of pain. It doesn't have to be this hardship. It can be joyous. It can be easy. It can be pain free. It can be push free. You can have a different type of pregnancy. You can have a different type of birth. And, that's what I feel a lot of my purpose or mission is to help people to understand and to feel that within themselves, and create more happiness and joy. So keep going. If you are on this lifestyle, keep going, and be patient with yourself. Don't give up. Be kind to others even when they don't agree with what you're doing, and be patient with everybody, and yeah,
Send them
have
this episode.
yeah, send in this episode. Exactly. Thank you. Awesome. And thank you so much, Alex. This was such a pleasure. I really appreciate
Thank you so much. Yeah, and so for sure, new paradigm with so less pain for pregnancy. You talked about the menstruation too, and yeah, thanks for being a pioneer in that. And again, people can reach out to you if they seek assistance on that. And if you're on that path and people are doubting and they don't understand what you're talking about, share with them this episode so they can educate themselves too, and maybe they'll open up their mind. Yeah, much love.
Awesome. Yay. Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex.